June 8th, Mandan Park District Board meeting to order. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll open the public communication from visitors. If anybody would like to speak, please approach the podium. Seeing no one, we'll close the public communication. Minutes, approval of the May 11th, 2026 regular meeting. Any discussion or what are the board's wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve the May 11th, 2026 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Freilich and a second from Commissioner Scott to approve the May 11th meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Meeting minutes are approved. Item number 1, consider for approval accepting Custer Elementary green space for a future park. Director Higlin.
Vice President Melhoff and Commissioners, as you know, last month I educated you that the school district would be wanting to transfer the land to the Park District. And I had shared back then in 1993 the Park District actually owned that property and transferred it to the school district to expand their elementary school. And if you remember correctly, that was the old site for the outdoor pool that was tore down and demoed at that time. There is no, as I mentioned last month, no documentation or agreement that specifically spells out that if it was ever to be sold, that it would be given back to the Park District. The minutes reflect that that was the intent, and I reached out to Bob Clemish, former Mayor Helbling, because they were on the park board back then, asking if that was what they remembered, and of course that's what they intended, was that it was given to the school to use for green space since the pool is no longer going to be there, and then if it ever was to be sold, it would be revert back to the Park District. With the school district, we've had some discussions, and in your packet is the letter basically dedicating the land back to the Park District. There was originally an MOU that had some expectations and things that they wanted for us to do with the land, and I didn't feel comfortable basically accepting those MOU because originally it was Park District planned or land, and that we should determine what we feel is in the best interest of the community and what we would like to put into it. I know they have closed a school in the neighborhood, and they wanted to make sure that there was some certain items, whether it's a playground or a 0 to 5 size playground or a 5 to 12. We as a park district, we have a asset replacement plan, and we talked about that a little bit again here this morning. Like, we have what we know which playgrounds are scheduled to be up for replacement. We would either build that into that replacement plan, or during our July retreat, we can determine if there's a year when we want to do it. But as I mentioned in the packet, and you can see on the overhead, the sites that we have where parks are adjacent nearby, as you can see, obviously we got Teamsters KC Park within a close range. You got Dykeshore Park on Main Street. You know, up the hills, definitely not easy access, but to Eagles Park where we have a large playground. So we do have 4 different parks within a reasonable distance. Doesn't mean that we can't put something there, and we talked about potentially with the senior center going in there, that maybe it's community gardens or some type of thing that could help with wellness and other activities that maybe just don't include. As we know, playgrounds 0 to 5, you're looking at $80,000 to $100,000 range. You start getting to 5 to 12, you start at about $150,000 to $200,000. So I think what we need to do is just evaluate the need, as we've done in other parks. We've sent out letters, have come to a meeting and or take a survey and just to see what the interest would be, find out if there's neighborhood daycares and things of that nature that maybe need to access this park. But before you, though, is to get approval to accept the land. I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Cole, do we want to also talk to the senior center that's going to go up there?
I think that'll be part of the whole survey process.
Okay.
As we develop and determine a budget, and then we can start having those surveys and determine what that need may or may not be.
Okay, thank you.
Cole, there's a playground there, so has there been any discussion with that?
Yeah, so the playground up on top, as you can see in the picture here, that will be torn out. And we've had difficulty too trying to relocate playground equipment. Obviously all the parts are cemented in and trying to relocate it. But the school district will be taking that out, so that won't be able to be relocated.
And so it'd just be the green space, not the parking lot? They would
Correct.
retain that?
Yeah, yep, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Cole? What are the board's wishes?
I recommend approving of accepting Custer Elementary green space for a city park. I would assume we would name it Custer Park. I think that would be appropriate yet. So I would like that in the motion too.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Mutter and a second from Commissioner Scott. Any other discussion?
Vice President Milhoff, just to clarify, so the motion is to accept the land and naming it Custer Park.
Correct.
You're okay with that, Stan?
Yep.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Commissioner Freilich?
Aye.
Commissioner Mutter?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries. Item number 2, Mandan Fire Department Sales Tax Presentation, Battalion Chief Weltacall.
Good
You're up.
evening, Vice President Milhoff and Commissioners. Second to pull this up on the screen for you here. So on the eve of tomorrow's June 9th vote for the reallocation of the 3/4 cent sales tax, and we want to take the opportunity today to come in front of you guys and give you a very high-level overview, quick 5 minutes about what is actually being voted on tomorrow. So up front, our ask is to take the 3/4 cent sales tax that has been previously used to pay down the Starry Sports Complex and reallocate that when the Starry Sports Complex is paid off to fund the fire department's 10-year strategic plan. So you'll notice, you've probably heard there's some very big ticket items in there. The most notable is probably Fire Station 3 in the northwest area of town. There's some other things in there, fire apparatus, some improvements to Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2, and those things are going to happen in 2031 and 2036 respectively, and then some purchase of some land for a future Station 4. No intention to build Station 4 anytime soon, but we want to go ahead and look at land today so we're not paying a premium in 20, 30 years down the road, whatever that ends up being. So everything that we do, we try to make a data-driven decision. And you'll notice I just have on this infographic here for you all that our population growth has obviously trended upwards in the last 10 years. And with that comes an increase in our call volume. And one of the most important pieces to the Mandan Fire Department's call volume statistics is our calls at the same time. So at any given time, anyone can call for an emergency. And 20% of the time, we are already busy with another emergency when an emergency comes in. So that means if Fire Station 1 is at a call in Plainview and another call comes in to Red Trail Elementary, Fire Station 2 has to take that call. So you guys know that Red Trail Elementary is quite a distance already from Fire Station 1. It's about 11-minute drive, and that's just drive time. So if we have folks sitting in our fire trucks ready to go when a call comes out, it takes them 11 minutes to get up to Red Trail Elementary. So we factor in a few other things when we talk about our response times, our turnout times, our dispatch processing times. All in all, that gives our response time that upwards of 15 minutes to the Red Trail Elementary area, which is a pretty significant distance. And when you're talking about coming from Station 2, that time obviously gets quite a bit longer. So that's the major thing that we're trying to address with the Fire Station 3 initiative. Now, the other piece of that is putting more firefighters on duty at a time so that we bolster our response to every other part of town. Right now, as it is today, if someone's house starts on fire, you're going to get 5 firefighters that show up on duty. That's obviously not a super effective response force, and we want to bolster that as much as we possibly can. When we put Station 3 online, our intention is to have 9 firefighters on all the time. Is that 100% book definition where we should probably be? No, not necessarily. But we believe this is a really good compromise, a really good use of our taxpayers' money to find that balance. You'll see on the middle picture on the bottom our response areas. Each fire station we have roughed out there. It's kind of a small picture, but about 1.5 mile jurisdiction. And if you look up in the top left corner, you'll see quite a gap for Fire Station 3. So we really need to hammer that coverage area up there and try to get our apparatus under that 4-minute mark is what we're shooting for response times. The biggest thing is, how are we going to pay for this? And I think you guys all know very well how the Starion Sports Complex taxes went. Paying it off early, that's a fantastic thing. And our ask of the community is just to take that and reallocate it for our 10-year strategic plan. So we want the community to know that we've put in a lot of effort to this, a lot of thought, and that we're being as responsible as we possibly can with their money. And I also, lastly, in closing, I want to thank all of the feedback that we have gotten, all the citizens for the feedback that we've gotten. We've heard all of you, and we've definitely done what we can to adjust. So with that, I stand for any questions you may have.
I've got one, and I think I'll start it. Can you say that again? Because I was in a planning and zoning meeting, and Bits said this too. What you want your response time is. And can you again say what your response time is now to Fort Lincoln and where you want it to be?
Sure, Vice President Melhoff and Commissioners, our response time now from Fire Station 1 to Red Trail Elementary is anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes. And that's, again, factoring in our dispatch processing time, our turnout times, and then our actual drive time. If you take Station 1, you put them on a different call, and Fire Station 2 has to respond, that time obviously goes up to 15, 16, 17 minutes. And remember that Red Trail Elementary isn't the furthest reaches of our city either. We have Rough Rider and Lewis Road and all those places, that are out there as well, even further. So we want to get to that 4-minute mark is our ultimate goal, is where we want to get. So we're looking to shave off quite a bit of time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Other questions? What is the end date, or is it an amount of money, or when will we expect this to sunset?
Vice President Melhoff and Commissioners, thank you for that question. The bond is set for 20 years or when the initiative, the entire $14 million ask is paid off, whichever comes first. It will not extend beyond that. The total ask is $14 million, no more, or 20 years, whichever happens, and then it goes away.
Very good, thank you. Anything else?
That was going to be my question, was the amount, but I do appreciate the effort that the fire department has put into this, and hopefully the citizens respond positive for this.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4, district updates. Or no, I'm sorry, item number 3, Brady Mart's presentation of the 2025 audit.
All right, good evening, Vice President Melhoff and Commissioners. I'm Mindy Pietz, a partner with Brady Mart's, and I'm going to be going over the district's financial audit tonight. First, going over the objective of the audit. So the objective of, when we conduct the audit, we do have standards that we have to follow in performing the audit. Those include generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. I'd remind you that when we perform the audit, the audit is designed to obtain reasonable assurance, but not absolute assurance that the financials are free of material misstatement. And so for the 12/31/2025 audit, we expressed an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, meaning that the financials are fairly stated in accordance with GAAP, and it's the best opinion that the district could receive on the financial statements. Additionally, because we perform the audit in accordance with government auditing standards, we also have to look at internal control and issue a report on that. Again, it's an unmodified opinion. However, we did have 3 findings that I'll go over. The first 2 regarding the auditors preparing the financial statements and then segregation of duties, those are repeat findings from last year. And then the third item, there were deposits at one bank account that were in excess of FDIC coverage. North Dakota Century Code requires that deposits on account at banks are either covered by FDIC or that there are pledged securities to cover those. And so no money went missing. However, just for good practice, having those deposits assured, and I believe when we brought it to the park board management's attention, they took corrective action immediately after learning about it. Next, just looking at a few financial highlights. So total cash for the general fund as of 2025 ended at about 4.9 million. And that is up from last year at 4.6 million, mostly due to higher investment earnings than what was anticipated. And then also tightening expenses on the operational side. Next, looking at revenues and expenses by fund. For the general fund, overall for the general fund for 2025, they netted about $560,000 positive, so revenues in excess of expenses. Last year it was about 1.4 million. So overall in the general fund, expenses were about 8.3 million, and that's up about 8% from last year. Next, looking at composition of fund balance. So at the very bottom, there's a green amount that's non-spendable. So that would be for prepaid items or items where the expense has already gone out. That next lighter shade of blue, that is for restricted funds. So that's money that's come in that's restricted for a specific use, such as capital projects. And then the orange is assigned, so that would represent items in the vision fund or items that the board and management have earmarked for specific purposes. And then the dark blue is unassigned. So in the general fund, that was about 3.4 million as of 12/31/2025. That would be available for current year expenditure or for spending how the park board sees fit. Next, looking at future debt payments, this is just a graph of the principal and interest payments over the next however many years until the debt is done. I would note the Raging Rivers debt was paid off. That was during this year, right? I believe. Oh, it was last year, so that one is not included on here. And then last, looking at the general fund budget versus actual. So again, this is how the general fund's overall net position increased and the cash increased. Revenues came in over budget by about 1.5 million, and expenditures came in slightly over budget at about 317,000. So overall, a good year for the general fund. On the screen is my contact information. If anybody does have any follow-up questions after the meeting, feel free to get a hold of me. And with that, I just want to thank the park board staff, Terry and Cole. They do a great job with the finances and getting us the information. It's kind of a whirlwind when we come in and perform the audit, but they do a great job getting us information and answering our questions. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks. Any questions? Go ahead.
Terry, is there anything that you saw? I know you do this every year, but I'm asking, is there anything you saw that bothered you or anything changed that you would like to see different?
No, actually, I think they do such a great, thorough job. I appreciate all their efforts and any suggestions they have for us. We try to implement whatever they may suggest, and we have a really good working relationship with the auditors.
Thank you.
Anything else regarding the audit? Is there any action required of us on that? All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the help. All right. Now, item 4, district updates. Director Higlin.
So in your packet, we are going to kind of give some informational, just because there's been a lot of things pending in regards to the lower Hart. And so on the overhead, we talked about some of those construction easements that we talked about related at municipal golf course. I know I've gotten asked, I'm sure many of you have gotten asked, like, what is the status of the hole number 4? There still has not had a permit approved yet from the Corps of Engineers. That has in the process. In your packet, I did, put a copy of that memorandum of understanding and a copy of the most recent minutes. I do attend each month's meeting, but what I wanted to share today is that we did negotiate the proper language and repairs and, I guess, MOU for what those construction easements would be. As we can see in this picture, you got a 30-foot construction easement. There will be a 15-foot from the toe permanent easement so that they have access to facilitate and maintain Their drainage system for that toe trench. At the bottom, I just want to point out, and I got some of my language there, but in the shaded red areas, that is going to be kind of their laydown yard and construction access. And you see to the right really shows a little bit of where they're going to access. We're trying as best as possible to keep them off our asphalt as far as access into our park. They know in our MOU, Fridays and Saturdays with picnics and events and family get-togethers is not going to be able to have access into that area, so we're going to try to protect that area as best we can. People ask me, what's your guesstimation as far as when hole number 4 would potentially be impacted? If I had to look at a magic ball, I'm thinking the fall of 27 is what we're looking at, which we know we have a cross-country meet on there at that time in the fall. So we're trying to work around some of those aspects of it, but until I get real close information and until that permit's been submitted and we get some thumbs up from the federal government and the local level, that's what I'm going to try to stick to at this point. It'll be the fall of 27. In addition to this, we have some trails that are going to be impacted, just so that the community understands, as we have 2 storm pipes that go across our trail. This is along 3rd Street. To the left is where Fort Lincoln's trolley is, if you can kind of put that in reference. 3rd Street, as you can see, the first one on the left-hand side is Marathon Oil Stormwater. And then this is the City Street one. They're going to relocate that, but you can see where they're going to abandon these lines over these trails. They're going to reroute it, and the next picture will give you a better version. Rotate it here for a second. So same pass as you can see. Obviously, I used my highlighter to emphasize the direction, but they are going to abandon these 2 spots that I told you in the trail. Water will then be pushed to the north. It'll be bored underneath there, and then reconnect and then outflow to the Hart River up there. This area I have circled here is where the city is going to have a new approach into this area to maintain their pipe stormwater. So that will impact that trail. As we know, it's a heavily used trail that kind of goes to the Cat Bus down there by the stage stop area. And then obviously we got some of the housing areas that need access to get to the east, whether it's on the Memorial Highway or over to Bismarck. So we will be doing temporary access points on there. So really not a whole lot to touch base with the Lower Hart, but a couple things is we are at 90% of completion as far as design. Again, we've got everything MOU'd as far as already approved, but then we're doing an MOU with the construction easements. I'm having Park Operations Manager Dustin Fleck go out and take pictures of all of the areas that potentially could be impacted with damage that happens during construction. So we have documentation to show our asphalt, the ground. Garrett has put together his list of comments that were shared, so that anything related to the golf area, turf compaction, things of that nature, damaged irrigation lines, are just all part of that. We don't know who the general contractor will be. Once it goes to bid, we'll determine who that will be, and we can kind of work out our construction comments. But it's starting to move forward after about many years of discussion, and the last year has been seems to be at a point now where we're just waiting for approvals from the federal government. So that is my update on Lower Hart. Any questions you may have?
Any questions, board? I have one question. Shows their staging area includes that hockey rink, or are they going to pull that out or just work around?
Yeah, so we did talk about that we do not want the dasher boards to be taken down. They can store stuff inside of that area if they need to, but as far as the actual hockey rink, that is not going to be tore down.
Okay.
They just shaded the whole area there, but they can put stuff inside the rink if they need to access it.
Sure. Okay. And then also, we're going to lose the trees along the levee, but I thought they said we could put shrubbery or bushes back in there.
Yeah, so according to the MOU, they are required to put a split rail fence on the east side of that trench so that we have a delineator along there to keep the public and golf carts out of driving over that storm drain drain. As far as trees getting put back, that is to be determined, part of their mitigation for any type of tree. For each tree determined or impacted, we are looked at different locations at Muni. It's really an open idea. Like, it's once we get to that spot, sure, Garrett will work with them directly, but they will be replacing trees, not along the toe of the dike, but will be throughout the golf course.
Okay. Anything else for Director Cole?
What about the practice green, chipping green, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, we haven't determined if it's going to be impacted, that is for sure. We're going to try to not necessarily damage as best as we can, but Garrett put together the specs that he would build that green back, and then those costs, similar to what we did on the temporary green that we built. any costs associated with that would be billed back to this construction project. They realize they're not going to try to drive over it. They're going to stay around it as best they can, but it won't be open to the public, unfortunately.
Yep.
Cole, what was the time? How long do they expect this take? I know that's a big guess for you, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean, in the fall, obviously, if we have good conditions and weather, I don't think it'll be an issue. They were going to want to have it all wrapped up before it frees up. Seeding and some of the tree planting might happen in the following spring of 28. But once they go, I think it's going to be a pretty simple process.
thanks, Cole.
E-bike ordinance.
So bringing before you some information that we've been working on for about 6 months. There is a statewide initiative that I've been a part of working with Grand Forks, Fargo, Bismarck, Mandan, really trying to kind of reel in these e-bikes. And as you know, and you've seen around the community, I mean, we understand that people want to get out in the community and exercise. And then there's always a small percentage of individuals who seem to be exceeding a very high speed at a young age. And there have been some deaths, both in Bismarck, Fargo, and most recently here in Dickinson, where a 14-year-old was injured and unfortunately passed away. And unfortunately, it takes those type of incidents for us to kind of put things together. I put in the packet for you to kind of look at. We're going to have further discussion at the retreat as far as what we think. Staff have had input on it. The concerns that we have, and I had it today, it was a perfect example of what we've been talking about, is they are legal on our trails by a federal mandate, and there's class 1, class 2, class 3. And what the ordinance is looking at is trying to get a better handle on the age of what they can be on these bikes. Today there was a 12-year-old kid on an e-bike that did not have any pedals, flying down the middle of Raging River's parking lot, and as you know, they're not paying attention to cars backing out, and that's my biggest fear, is when they're coming to our facilities and not paying attention because of the age, not wearing a helmet, and they're doing a high speed at times. Now, there are individuals who follow the rules and they do a good job, and they're not scaring our pedestrians on our trails, and they're trying to be a good steward. But unfortunately, I probably had more phone calls on it than I've had positive associated with the e-bikes. So we're not trying to say you can't use them on our trails, but we are trying to control and kind of condense and prevent a severe injury in there. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was that we have to decide as a park district is there are areas in this town, like downtown, the business district, they are prohibited to be on sidewalks. In frontage of school zones, they are not allowed to be. And so we're looking at, from a staff standpoint, is think of Starring Sports Complex, even the Mandan Tennis Center. I mentioned Raging Rivers, even some of our golf course parking lots. That's where it seems to be when they come in at a high speed off of our trails into our parking lots. And then obviously where they're going to park and access. We've had them on our RC tracks. We've had them in our skate parks. We've had them into our ball diamonds. So some of the things that we've been talking about is not having access into the parking lots, which we can sign, and we know that there's a sign's only so good if you want to follow it. Any fenced-in areas that we have for public sporting events, we've had a couple issues where they drive into the ball diamonds and then they park them, and we need to be able to designate certain areas. So it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all for everybody, and I think it's going to be a continual development. But we've been working with Mandan PD, again, the statewide initiative, trying to pull together just to kind of get some consistency, specifically between Bismarck and Mandan. We've been working with their police department, and Officer Beer has been very helpful in trying to draft the ordinance. And the last comment I wanted to make in the ordinance was, you know, they have on their ordinance for city sidewalks to be at not to exceed 8 miles an hour. And then on the trails, I believe it was 15 miles an hour. Yeah, 15 miles an hour is what we're trying to keep it to. There are bikes that are doing 25 up to 30 plus miles an hour. And we know the gas-powered ones are illegal. And it's difficult to catch these individuals, and hopefully they don't get hurt. But we understand Mandan PD have a lot of more important things to do. But we're hoping between signage, we do have education going to our MAC programs with the Mandan PD, go out and educate the youth. If they are going to be looking at these, you'll start seeing social media posts, both from the city of Mandan and the Park District as a collaborated effort. And we've reached out with Bismarck PD to determine how we can kind of get this message out there and hopefully police itself. But you will start seeing signs once this ordinance is approved. I don't have an exact timeline when it will come before the city of Mandan for ordinance approval. I think we're going to have our retreat, as I mentioned, at the end of the month, provide comment, direction, and thoughts. That's why I put it in your packet today for you to have the ability to just kind of review it. And then we can bring comments back to that retreat, and then we can bring it before the city commission, and they will have a public hearing associated with it at that time. Any questions you have on e-bikes?
Cole, are we doing the electric they're driving me nuts, but that's another story. The electric motorcycles and the e-bikes, are we going to separate that or are we going to keep them together?
And in your packet, there's kind of a picture that kind of separates the difference, and it's if it has pedals or it has pedestals. So bike pedals and a seat, not necessarily a motorcycle type seat and not a pedestal for your feet to rest on, but you actually have to pedal a little bit and get assistance from electrical e-bike is what the purpose is. But we've heard stories of individuals from South Fort Lincoln driving all the way up to Star and Sports Complex on an e-bike, 12-year-old girl. It's like, wow, and just the education standpoint with no helmet. So we're trying to figure that out, what access. Again, Mandan PD, if you haven't seen, now have e-bikes, and they're patrolling some of our trails and some of our facilities to help educate. The intent is not to give tickets to kids under the age of 14. We want to give warnings and give education, prevent accidents, and hopefully follow up with that individual's parents at a later date to talk about safety so they understand. We've reached out to some of the retail businesses too to determine how can we get this education out, because they're buying the bikes from you and we understand you're for profit, and we just want to be able to understand what the right way and to keep kids safe is what our ultimate issue is.
Very good. Anything else for Director Higman on that item? Next, 1806
Hold
trail.
on. I would say that age is a bigger factor than anything else, in my opinion. If you're not old enough to know the rules of the road or to apply the rules of the road, then you're probably needing, e-bike safety training just like they do for regular bike training. So I'm happy that this is moving forward.
Thank you. All right, 1806 trail grant.
So we had mentioned earlier this year we did not get funded, and then there was, as you can see in the email from More Engineering, that an city that was funded declined to accept the grant. So we're excited to tell you that we were able to get this trail 1806 basically from 38th Street on the north end of Marathon Refinery all the way down to the south end to Eagles Park. It'll be reconstruction in the green areas. And the area up here in green, if you're familiar with the land ice flood issues that they're having with stormwater, we will put a bridge that will connect this piece. Right now today we have water going over top of the trail and it's been deteriorating it for many years. So that section will have a bridge over that to kind of help with the mediation related to the water damage that's been happening. Yeah, we're very excited for the trail to be recompleted. And again, as you know, it leads up to our new park that we purchased up in this area. So we got access all the way up there now, so we'll be able to connectivity. But yeah, before you though would be a motion to accept the grant, since it is and this again is a partnership between the City of Mandan and the Park District on this one, because the city is taking the lead on this section underneath the I-94 and then underneath that section where there is no curb and gutter on that trail. If you remember right, when you go underneath that bridge, it's the road and the trail are all connectivity, so there will be a curb and gutter connected there to kind of get that elevated trail up and kind of provide more safety.
Very good. Is the northern termini of this the limits of our trail then?
Correct. That's where city limit ends. That is correct.
You guys are going to use the same company for both of them? For the
One
city and the Mandan?
Yeah, it's one construction project. We're just
Okay.
collaboratively putting it together, and we're taking our percentage of the specials, but when we bid it, it'll be one contractor.
One contract, okay, thank you.
Anything else for Director Cole? What are the board's wishes?
I would move to accept the trail grant in the amount of $687,847 for the Highway 1806 North Trail.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Scott and a second from Commissioner Mutter. Any more discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Mutter,
Yes.
Commissioner Freilich,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion carries. Updated green space ordinance.
Commissioners, we've been working on this for about 12 years, and in 2024 is when we finally got the dedication to get proceeded through City Commission to draft these type of green space ordinance. As you know, Bismarck has had one for many years. So before you is the rough draft for you to provide comments and direction if there's anything that you have concerns with. We will bring it back to the city planning department in regards to any recommendations or changes that you have. But the highlights really comes down to if a development is to come into the city and it's less than 10 units or less, we as the Park District will receive 5% of the land. We do have the option to do a fee in lieu of, and I think I went too far ahead here, but yeah, here it is. And if for some reason we want land and or cash, then that's what we have to negotiate with that developer if it's a combination, depending on how large what there would be. So for instance, if it's 10 dwelling units or more, obviously it would be 7%. So if it's to say it's 100 acres and we're going to get 7 acres and we don't need 7 acres, maybe we need 3 acres, then we take 4 acres in lieu of cash. We can determine how many units would be on that property. The cash would be the same that we are today on our impact fees. Today we get $500 per single family permit, we get $250 on multi-unit, and then we get $1,000 on commercial. The discussion was had, do we have a dedication for land in commercial areas? And that's something that we're trying to massage through right now. As of right now, that wouldn't be a need. We would have the impact fees associated with that, like we do today. But we're kind of excited to get this rolling. An example would be like what we did at Sunrise. We had to acquire the property. As we know, we were in the low six figures as far as buying land, and then you got the cost to develop the land. With this, we would then enter into an agreement with our land developer. We would determine when those parks would go in. As obviously, if you're giving up land and you're trying to sell lots, a developer is going to want to see the park and the amenities there to help sell his lots and grow that opportunity. So that'll all be part of a MOU between the developer, the city, and the parks. We will bring that before the board with our recommendations, and the board will determine if they want to accept the land and or cash in lieu of, and then proceed forward. What will end up happening now is obviously if we're taking land and not the impact fees, as we know the impact fees don't keep up on the cost of what it's taken to develop a park. As I mentioned earlier at Custer Elementary, you're looking at $150,000 to $200,000 for probably a lower sized park. So we would have to build this into our strategic plan and determine how we'd want to move forward with that and how we would pay for it. So it's not just getting land and then sit on it and wait for many years. It's dependent on the development and the MOU with the developer, how soon he would like to see some of those things in. And in most parts, what I've seen across the state with Fargo, West Fargo, and in Bismarck, reaching out to them, usually it's at about a 40% build out. Once it gets to that 40% build out, then they start putting the park in. But there are some who want special amenities, and let's just say a skating rink or an amphitheater or some things that's just not your normal in your green space. Those are some of the discussions that we have to have. But then on the flip side, we've had other aspects where they're used to seeing these urban developments with trail connectivity throughout it. They give easements and access for trail connectivity. Maybe they want multiple sites along a development where we have like an acre park here, another one further down the road. So I see a lot of positives coming out of this. It's going to be a change, as we know, and there's been a lot of communication on the city side with developers and impact. We've had multiple planning and zoning ordinance meetings. I know Commissioner Mutter's been part of those, and so I'll just stand for any questions you may have with this green space ordinance in front of you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seems like this has been in flux for quite a while. Are you pretty confident in where we're getting here?
I think so. It's been definitely, I think some staff turnover in the city side with not having a planner's kind of had a little bit of impact associated with that, where they've had an open position. But they've been contracted out with Interstate Engineering, which Rachel's been really positive. They have one in Williston, so she's used a lot of the pros and cons. One of the things, obviously, with the data center, which I'll talk about at our board reports, but some of those things are being built into there today, how that would kind of help impact. But yeah, we're pretty excited.
Very good. All right, item number 5, consider
Want a
for,
motion on that?
No, we don't need a motion at this time.
Okay.
Just any feedback or direction that you may have. And then once it gets through that process and we go through the city's planning and thought process, then there'll be a motion on the city side.
all right, item 5, consider for approval out-of-state travel to the NRPA conference.
So I know it's difficult with an election tomorrow, not knowing which commissioner may or may not be able to attend. It just opened up this month, June 1st. Hotel rooms always go fast, and so any out-of-state travel requires board approval. And so what we want to do is at least get hotel rooms reserved. We do have time to purchase our basically entry fee or to the conference as far as the fees. What we're looking at is two staff, which would be Tyra Ripple, I almost said Watson, Tyra Ripple, and myself. If we are accredited, as we know we're going through CAPA right now, I'm assuming that we will attend the ceremony, which is that usually I couldn't remember if it was Monday or Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday night now. So Wednesday night is when the ceremony would be during that week. We would accept our award for our accreditation. If we want to bring all 5 commissioners and additional staff who participated in it, that is something that the board, but for now, I'm just asking for 3 approval to attend at this time. And then after the election, and once we know we're accredited, we can always get additional rooms and or memberships into the conference. But I can reserve up to as many rooms as I think we need to. We know for sure 3 will attend. Commissioners can determine which one would like to attend. It's in Philadelphia, as you mentioned, but I'd like to get the rooms reserved at this time, so we're not going to get the cost going up.
Okay, any comments? What are the board's wishes?
I would move to approve the funding or the approval of the travel, out-of-state travel for the national convention.
I'll second.
Motion from Commissioner Scott and a second from Commissioner Freilich. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 6, consider for approval using Mandan Public School and Mandan Park District Joint Facility Fund for Starion Sports Center Complex track repairs.
Yes, Commissioners, we've known about some damages associated with the track for the last few years. We have sealed them and along the perimeter edge of the track. It does not impact the actual competition area of the track, but we have been doing a good job of staying ahead of that. We are very fortunate to have the Bismarck Community Bowl across the river doing a complete reconstruction of their track. The same company that is there is the same company that is able to do this track. They were the exact same contractor that did our track back in 17 when we opened. It is under the bid threshold, so we do not have to bid it, but it's nice to have these individuals here in town that we can award this to them. Dave Free got a cost estimate of $72,000, and as you can see, we have a joint powers facility fund with Mandan Public Schools in the Park District that annually we put in $50,000 for these costs. So any facility that we jointly use for athletic needs, this does qualify in our joint powers agreements. So there is no funds coming from the Park District directly out of the general fund. We have transferred them into that joint maintenance fund. So we're able to utilize all of these funds for that. So our recommendation is to approve the $72,000 plus permit fees and bonding fees using the joint facility maintenance fund.
Cole, if they see any other questionable areas, will they say anything?
So our track's actually in really good shape,
Okay.
and the bubbling and the cracking that we have is running parallel to where all the concrete is, and that's the unfortunate. There's just a little bit of movement and there's a curb on the outside of the track, so as that track goes over that curb, that's where you're starting to see where the adhesion. We've gone in and cracked, sealed some of it, and then we've cut slits to kind of get it to drop and then just shoved glue in there. But this way they're going to cut out all on that edge, especially on the west side of that track.
Okay.
They'll cut the whole length of that 100-yard stretch, and then it kind of curves, but not only a lot of longitudinal into the track itself.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
I recommend approving paying $72,000 plus permits and bond fees out of the joint powers agreement to fix the west portion of the track at Starion Sports Complex.
I'll second.
A motion from Commissioner Freilich and a second from Commissioner Mutter. Any other discussion? Did you hear that okay? My microphone wasn't on. All right. Okay, we'll go roll call vote here. Commissioner Scott,
Aye.
Commissioner Freilich,
Aye.
Commissioner Mutter.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries. Item number 6, monthly bills. discussion, or what are the board's wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve the monthly bills.
Second.
A motion from Commissioner Freilich and a second from Commissioner Scott to approve payment of our monthly bills. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 7, Commissioner Staff Reports. Cole?
Commissioners, just a kind of a reminder, Diamonds 11 and 12, that's the project we're doing with the Mandan Baseball Club. We had our first preliminary meeting this afternoon. It's set to start July 20th, so Diamonds 11 and 12, then we'll start the reconstruction. We've shared this schedule with them. As we know, we're hosting Central Plains, I think it's April 5th through the 8th. So they're well aware that we want to make sure that construction's not impacting the nice event that we're bringing to Memorial Ballpark. But that construction, as we said, July 20th, it will start. That's the one that's being funded 100% by the Mandan Baseball Club. It'll operate as similar as what we have in the past, where we will collect the invoice, we make the payment, we invoice the baseball club and get reimbursed all in that same time. So it's basically a money in, money out. In addition to that, there's been some discussions about adding some new entrance gates on the east and west side of where you walk from the parking lot, like you're going to go to this concession stands and right to Memorial Ballpark or left to the youth complex. The baseball club would like to add some decorative signage, some nice stone block to kind of dress up the entrances a little bit. So again, it's at their cost. So we've got that brought before the contractor today to get an estimate and see what that cost would be. But yeah, that project's set to start here July 20th. I will, after the election, as I know, we got to have a reorganizational meeting, which is on the agenda for June 16th. I will try to schedule as many portfolio meetings for our 27 budget process as soon as possible. We want to get ahead of that. The goal would try to get it done before the 4th of July, but we also have CAPRA accreditation for the 28th, which is a Sunday afternoon that staff and I will be a part of, and then we got Monday, Tuesday. So it might be a little tight to get it done by the 4th of July. We may have to have a couple kind of follow after the 4th of July if needed. As far as the July 27th retreat, I usually send the agenda out to the commissioners and ask for feedback if there's additional things and items that you would like to have discussed or planned or thought about. So I'll include that in the July board meeting so we have time to be able to research and provide any information that you would need at that time. And lastly, I sent the text out to commissioners as an FYI that we had a power outage out at Raging Rivers. And I just want the public to know our staff was diligently working hard, both Dave Free, Dustin Fleck, Casey Salmons, that we didn't know until 11:43 we were going to be able to open that water park up. But what they did between 8:30 and 11:43, we were able to open that water park up. And I think sometimes we get a bad rap at times that, we close because of certain weather here or there. And it's always a hard decision to make based on weather, wind. And then obviously it's a for-profit facility that we're trying to make decisions on. But these things don't go unnoticed, and I just want to let the board know that they were getting after it, and there was some concerns, and unfortunately it was not out of our hands. It was a substation that had to be reset, and we got it fixed, I guess is what I would say. That's what I'm proud about our staff, is they come in on a Sunday morning, they address it, we're communicating, we're telling the public. We had 5 people involved trying to make sure we're going, but the $13,000 worth of revenue that came through that gate, no one knew the difference, and that's what's most important, is that they were able to have that water park, and we knew it was a 95-degree day. But things happen out of our hands sometimes, and when it comes mechanical and electrical, that isn't a part of our repertoire. But we have good contractors, subcontractors that came on call, and we got it up and running, and no one knew any different. By 12:05, we were rolling, and no one knew the difference. So I just want to make sure that staff knows, because it is important to get that thing open, but a lot of people make it happen.
Thank you. Terry?
Nothing to report.
Turning her off? Nothing? Commissioner Mutter?
I'm usually I bring up about we got 25 people and apps and stuff like that, but I want to congratulate Sophia. She's an assistant coach on the girls soccer team, and they finished second at state. She works she's an employee for the Mandan Parks and Rec. I just want to, first of all, I got to thank Cole and all these guys for hiring somebody who is taking some leadership outside of Park and Rec and doing something with the school district and finishing second. I want to congratulate her publicly. So thank you, Sophia, and congratulations.
Very good. Commissioner Freilich?
I've got no report.
Commissioner Scott?
Nothing for me.
All right, no report from me either. Future meeting dates for Park Board Commissioners. Cole mentioned a couple of these already. June 16th, we'll do our park commissioner reorganizational meeting after tomorrow's election. June 29th, it'll be a Capra accreditation. I had trouble with that word last month, too. Where's Wade? He can say that word. Capra accreditation luncheon. July 13th is our regular scheduled park board meeting, and July 27th, it would be our park board budget retreat. Seeking a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Scott and a second from Commissioner Mutter for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.